Hello and welcome to day 2 of Facebook Yoga, and today we are going to be talking all about your spine. Now, as you can see, the human spine is very flexible and very supple, and of course the aim of yoga is to make sure that your spine remains supple for as long as possible, because a healthy spine means that you're going to be a lot more healthy as you get into old age and a lot more mobile. Now, I'm not going to expect everybody, or you particularly if you're not a yoga practitioner, to be able to use a yoga wheel yet, but what is really important is that we start warming up the spine before we do anything. And this particular posture, which I'm going to show you, is very useful to do first thing in the morning before you wake up, or perhaps before you get into the car to drive, or when you get back from work and you have sore shoulders. Maybe you've been sitting all day, so you can feel the pain of that in your hips and your legs. Doing this following posture, or it's actually 2 postures, floating from one to the other, is a very common yoga warm-up, but it's a really good way to start mobilizing your spine. So we're going to come onto all fours, and here it's really important that you place your wrists directly underneath your shoulders and your hips directly underneath your knees. You want to find a straight spine, and you want to make sure that you've got the full range of your spine available to you. Now, placing the wrists at shoulder width and the knees at hip width, the fronts of your feet ideally are released flat onto the mat, but if you are a bit tight in the fronts of your feet, you can tuck your toes under. The first posture is the cat stretch. Now, this is like an angry cat. You tuck your chin to your chest, press the mat away from you as you roll the back of your body towards the ceiling, and then draw your pelvis forward so you can feel the full length of your spine from the tip of your tailbone all the way to the base of your skull. And that is done on an exhale. Now, for the inhale, we're literally going to float in the other direction and make a U shape with the back, tucking your tailbone to the ceiling, drawing your shoulder blades together and taking your chin as far forward as you can. So the full range of motion of your spine into a lovely U shape. And then tucking under as you tuck into your exhale, pressing the mat away, broadening your shoulder blades and drawing your tailbone forward, and inhaling, taking it in the other direction. So the inhale comes on the expansion of your rib cage, and the exhale comes on the contraction. So we're not just working with the spine, we're also working with the lungs and the ribs, and of course the hips and the shoulders are also being mobilized, and at the same time the neck is moving. It's important here that you try and keep your elbows locked out with the creases of the elbows forward. When we visit downward facing dog tomorrow, I will explain why. Now, if you are an experienced yogi, you can take this a bit further, but clearly if you are still just learning or getting used to it, or if you're working with an injury, just stay with your cat and cow transitions. But experienced yogis can tuck the toes under, and from here float up into downward facing dog. And what I quite like to do is to float my knees back down on the mat, and then to float back into Bitchalasana, which is cow belly stretch. And from here, tucking through cat stretch, up into downward facing dog, and from downward dog floating forward into a cow belly stretch again. And the posture to escape from this is to take your bottom back to the mat into child's pose. But I do know that for many people, especially for those not experienced in yoga, child's pose is a real challenge. So next week, when we come to the second week of our 10 days of yoga, I will go into a little bit more detail about how to make child's pose work for you, especially if you're tight in the hips. But for today, that's the end of our bite-sized yoga, and I would encourage you to start moving your spine, to try and create that lovely undulation in your spine, taking it through its full range of motion. If you do this every day, you'll be amazed at the results that you can get within just a week of simply just moving your spine, especially if you suffer from backache, shoulder pain, or whichever other aches and pains assail the hips and the upper body. So thank you very much for joining me, and I look forward to see you tomorrow for day 3 of 10 days of Facebook yoga. Namaste.